okay with that. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful, beautiful, powerful, magnificent princess. And there was a handsome, strong, and courageous prince. The prince and the princess ruled a mighty land, a wonderful realm, a beautiful, beautiful realm that prospered, was full of joy. The streams jumped with trout. The orchards were full of fruit. The gardens grew abundant. And the people were oh so happy and so joyful. The children played in the fields, and the prince and the princess ruled this land. Now the prince and the princess shared a beautiful castle. And during the days, the princess would sit in the tower in the castle, and she would listen to the stories of the prince, and she would spin magnificent thread as she listened to the magnificent stories of the realm and the beauty of the land that they lived in. She would spin this thread, and it would be beautiful and shiny and oh so soft to the touch. And as she spun the thread, she would then weave on the loom beautiful tapestries, beautiful, beautiful tapestries that reflected the beauty that the prince told her of in the land. As the tapestry wove, as she wove that tapestry, the tapestry would flow out into the room and out through the window, and the tapestry would flow down the wall of the tower and out across the land. And it enhanced everything the prince saw. And so his stories to the princess became ever more beautiful, ever more beautiful, ever more soft, the strands and the thread, and ever more beautiful, the weaving on the loom. Now one day a stranger entered the land. And the stranger noticed what was happening with the prince and the princess. The stranger thought to himself, I would like that princess to weave tapestries for me. I wonder what I can do to get that princess to weave tapestries the way I'd like to see them. And so the stranger thought on this, and the stranger spoke to a few here and spoke to a few there, and gathered to him a couple of folks that would help him, his minions. One day, he felt he was ready, and he approached the prince as the prince chopped wood in front of the castle. He came up to the prince, and he spoke kind words. And he said, "Oh, prince, you must be so thirsty. Drink with me, and I will tell you of the things I've seen in the land, this beautiful realm that you and your princess guard and rule over." And so the prince felt a little tired and thought, I'll have a little drink. What's to hurt? And he sat with the stranger and drank his libation. And as he listened to the stranger, he began to have thoughts. He began to wonder about that world, about the realm, because every now and then the stranger would include some strange story of things not so good, of struggle and strife in the land. And so after this stranger had visited a few times and sat with the prince a few times, the prince began to share some of these stories with the princess. And as he did, the princess, who, mind you, could not see on her own, the princess, it's my earring. They warn you about these things. And then in vanity, we forget. Here we go. You'll have to see me with only one earring. All right, so the princess could not see upon her own. She relied on the prince's words to tell her of the realm, to tell her of the beauty surrounding her. And as he told her these stories of not so beautiful, the quality of the thread she spun began to change ever so slightly. It began to be a little coarser and a little more difficult to manipulate. The colors began to change, but neither the prince nor the princess noticed. And as the days unfolded and the prince brought more and more stories to the princess from this stranger, that thread began to be so coarse that the princess's fingers began to bleed, and her blood began to be woven into this tapestry. And the tapestry changed in its looks, and it wasn't quite as beautiful as it used to be, and yet it still was woven, and it still flowed out the window, and it still covered the land. Well, as time passed, the tapestry spread throughout the land, and people began to notice this tapestry, and they began to whisper amongst themselves, maybe the land isn't as abundant as we thought it was. Maybe there aren't as many trout in the stream as we think there are. And lo and behold, as the tapestry covered the land began to change. The prince's mood began to change. The prince's time with the princess became less and less as he spent more and more time with the stranger. The princess, on her own in the tower, could not leave to go find the prince, and so she spun her thread, and she wove her tapestry, and she waited. Now the prince, as he looked more and more upon the land and saw more and more of the darkness, more and more of the lack of health, we'll say, the fire, the turmoil, the people began to bicker among themselves, and the prince was quite upset about this. And when he did come to visit the princess, he would complain about the land, and he would say, "Princess, princess, why are you weaving such an ugly tapestry? It's terrible out there, and I don't know what to do." And so time continued to unfold, and the tapestry continued to unwind, until one day the prince noticed it was so very dark and it was so very sad out there that he didn't know what to do. And in desperation, he called out to the very cosmos and asked, "What am I to do? What is a prince to do when the land has forgotten him? When the princess has forgotten him? What am I to do?" And suddenly, a wise old woman appeared. She stood before the prince, and she told the prince, "My name is Sophia, and I heard your plea, and I thought I might stop by and offer some advice." Now the prince saw this small, tiny, little old witch, basically, and wondered, what in the world could you do to help me? This has gone way beyond the power of a tiny little old woman. But she smiled and she laughed and she said, "My dear prince, you have forgotten many things. You have forgotten your princess. You have forgotten that you rule this land. And you've allowed the tapestry to blind you to what is true beyond it." Now the prince was still quite skeptical, but he was willing at that point to pretty much give anything a try. So he asked Sophia, "What would you have me do?" And she told him, you need to return to your princess. You need to go back to the tower. You need to be with your princess. You need to tell her what she needs to hear. And so he dashed off, not even waiting until the wise woman had finished her advice. And he dashed to the tower, and he began to earnestly tell the princess what he thought she needed to hear. And he told her yet again what a daft job she had done. How terrible the tapestry was that she was weaving. How disastrous this was to the land. And how he desperately needed her to shape up and fly right. Okay? And yet, here she was, tears flowing from her blind eyes, trying and trying and trying to spin a better thread, trying to weave a better tapestry, but all she had were the words he was giving her. And so he looked out upon the land, and it only was getting worse. Lightning was striking quite close to the tower. Fires were burning. There were dragons out there. All manner of things as he looked out the window. And as the sun began to close on this day, he felt for sure that surely this may be the last day in the realm. And he took a deep breath, and he cried again, Sophia, 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 I fear that I have failed to understand. And Sophia came right to his side. And Sophia told him, you tell her of the wrong things. But Sophia, how can I tell her of anything else when this is all I see? And she said, my prince, you must look up. Look up. Look up. What do you see? And the prince shook himself and looked up. And oh, he did see a beautiful sunset. And she said, tell her of that quickly, quickly. Tell her of the sunset before it is gone. And so he whispered to her of the beautiful sunset. It is glorious. What a glorious sunset I see, princess. It is beautiful. And he looked in her eyes and he realized, oh, I see the beauty of your eyes, my princess. I see the beauty of your eyes, and there reflected is the beauty of the sunset. And as he did that, as he told her just those simple things, he noticed that her fingers stopped bleeding, that the thread became soft and had some glint of beauty in it once again. And so in earnest, he told her over and over of every beautiful sunset he could ever remember. And as he remembered the beauty of a few of these sunsets, he began to remember what it was like in the realm in the days before. And as the sun set, he gave up worrying about the sun not rising. He gave up worrying about whether they would ever see the next day. He just told her of the beauty in her eyes. He told her of the beauty of the sunset. And throughout the night, this is what they did. He spoke to her. She spun her thread. She wove her tapestry. And they waited. After a number of hours, he began to notice the very gray, thin line of dawn in the opposite window. And he began to speak to her of the beauty that he saw there, always keeping his eyes up, always looking up. He told her of the beauty of the sunrise and he told her of the few things he began to see in the tapestry that truly were beautiful. He began to feel a little better, and as the sun rose, he noticed that the land looked a little better. And so he never left the princess' side for the next several days. He stayed right with her, telling her story after story of beauty, of her beauty, of his beauty, of their beauty together, and of the beauty of the realm that they managed together. Before long, the fires were quieted, the lightning had stopped, and the few dragons that were left had become tame and led the people to the treasures that they hid. So from that day forward, the prince promised never to leave her side. Never again would he leave her alone for the minions to whisper to. Never again would he listen to the stranger telling him the stories of sadness and woe. Wherever he would go, he would take the princess with her, and he would remember to stay awake and alert and to guard that princess and guard their castle, because not only did their life depend upon it, but the life of the realm depended upon it. And so, as they grew closer together, they created such a powerful, warm, and happy place, such an environment conducive to growth, that the very gods themselves came down and lived through them. And before long, the princess was full with child and gave birth to a mighty king that would lead the land in peace and joy forever and ever, and all would live happily ever after. So, this is a story, not just of a fairy tale land, but this is a story of you and me. I know you recognize it because it unfolds in your life every single day. It unfolds in each of our lives every single day. It is unfolding in the realm in which we live today. The principle of gender states, the axiom of the principle of gender tells us, gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principle. Gender manifests on all planes. So, on one plane, we see gender shows up as electrons and protons. On another plane, gender shows up as egg and sperm. And on another plane, gender shows up as conscious and unconscious, the prince and the princess. Now, the prince and the princess live within us. We hear about them frequently from time to time. This last month, January, the conscious and unconscious, the conscious and subconscious were brought up on a couple of different times. Dr. David spoke about the subconscious and the conscious mind in his first talk of the month in January. Dr. Will and Dr. David talked about conscious and unconscious in their talk as well. And I wanted to bring it home a little more closely with story time. Because one of my favorite quotes from Ernest Holmes talks, it goes like this: spiritual evolution should make the infinite not more distant, but more intimate. So a lot of times when we look at conscious and subconscious, strictly as conscious and subconscious, they can be kind of dry, kind of on the shelf, kind of academic, don't you think? And it can be kind of difficult at times to apply them to our lives when we just look at them as psychological components. It's kind of laboratory for me, you know? It's kind of sterile. Let's put it that way. It's kind of sterile. But when I need to learn something, and I mean really learn it, when I need to get it, a lot of times a story helps me get it. And I think we all kind of have that in common. Stories really speak to us on levels. They actually speak to our subconscious. They tell us things that our conscious might not be aware of, but they remind us of things inside. They can remind us to wake up. So I want to look a little bit at the pattern of the prince and the princess in this story. It's a pattern that you will see throughout many, many of the fairy tales that we have been exposed to as children. The prince rescues the princess. Well, for empowered princesses that we are these days, that may seem like a real problem. Like, why do we need the prince to rescue us? So I want, yeah, okay, applause for that, right. So we're gonna come back to that in just a minute, okay? Because really, it's not about gender. Now, we are blessed with a very versatile and diverse group of people here, too. So I want us to move away from just the idea of gender and realize that it's about active principle and receptive principle, okay? I'm not talking about the junk in your trunk, okay? I'm not. I'm talking about active principle and passive principle, and we all have both of those within us. Okay, so there may be some of you in here who are thrilled with the idea of having a princess inside, right? Your inner princess. We're thrilled about that, okay? And there may be some of you who are thrilled of the idea of having a mighty strong prince within you. And then there may be others who are like, princess, not so much. Okay, or prince, not so much. So I invite you to translate in whatever way you need to, whether it's butch and femme, or whether it's whatever it may be. Okay, you go there on your own. But let me talk about. I'm gonna use prince and princess because they are universal images that we've all been exposed to. Okay, they are really in our DNA, and they are in our conscious, our psyche is what I'm trying to say. They're in our psyche as the conscious and the subconscious. There's the part of you that goes out and chops wood and carries water, and there's the part of you that's weaving and spinning thread and weaving and spinning thread and weaving that tapestry. And it's important to recognize that, and it's important to honor who they are and the roles they play, because they play very important roles. And part of what we've done in this where we are in history right now is we've forgotten the importance of the prince in many ways. Our prince has in many ways allowed himself to be drugged, to be numbed, to be checked out, to be Joe Six-Pack on the sofa with his hand in his belt and his other hand on the beer and one hand on the changer, and how he's got three hands, I don't know, but one hand on the changer, and he's surfing. And so let's talk about that image for a minute. He's surfing, and everything that he unconsciously zones out and sees is whispering to his princess. That's how serious this is, okay? His princess was programmed when he was too young to wield a sword. His princess was programmed with, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not wise enough. Why are you weaving that thread? Why are you spinning that thread? His princess is programmed. Oh my goodness, our princesses are even programmed by little beings we have living inside of us, okay? It's called our microbiome. Who would have guessed? But there are little voices in you that are telling the princess, you need that cake. Okay. Those little microbes are in there. And if your prince isn't awake, if he's not alert, if he's not conscious, and if he's not on guard, guarding the princess, she's being fed all of this nonsense. And she's spinning her thread, and she's weaving her tapestry. And you guys know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So, what are you whispering to your princess? What are you whispering to your princess? So once we reclaim the castle and we send off the minions, we get rid of the minions and the adversary, all of these characters we're going to talk more about in the workshop this afternoon, okay? But once the prince retakes the castle and rescues the princess, he's got to whisper the right things to the princess. We have to find those things to whisper to the princess. Now, ancient religious texts tell us those things. It tells us in Philippians chapter 4, that which is beautiful, that which is true, okay? The other ones tell us to keep our mind on that which we want to see. It's not about denying that there's stuff going on outside the castle wall. We don't want to be in denial. We want to deny that has power over us. We need to reclaim our power and stand up and protect the princess. To do that, we can't do it by turning our back on the adversaries or the dragons. We have to turn and look at them, and we have to call them out for what they are. And then we have to stand up and protect the princess. Now, all of these things show up on multiple levels. They are going on inside of us. But right along with the principle of gender is the principle of correspondence. And you know that principle by this axiom: as above, so below. There's more though. As below, so above. As within, so without. That's the principle of correspondence. And that's what tells us to remember that we need to look at the world stage as well. So let's, for a moment, take a look at the world stage, all right? Back in 1998, Disney did us a grand thing. Disney presented us with a powerful princess. In 1998, I took my daughter, who was 12 at the time, to see a Disney movie called Mulan. I had never heard of it before, but I came out of that movie knowing that the world I was stepping into was different than the world before that, because Mulan brought to the West the image of a powerful princess. Mulan, not just a powerful princess, the warrior princess. The warrior princess. And since then, Disney has done a beautiful job of waking up the princess and empowering the princess. Maleficent, powerful princess, okay? Powerful princess. In the world we're in right now, we're beginning to see the princess waking up and saying, oh snap, you're not my prince. What are you doing in my tower? Get out. Right? Not only that, the princess is pissed. Okay? She's pissed. And rightfully so, rightfully so. She's been abused. She's been relegated to the dungeons, not even the tower. She's been used because guess what? The stranger in the land, the stranger knows what the princess weaves. And the stranger has been using it for millennia. Now, when I say the stranger is in you, just as the stranger is in me. I don't mean somebody else. It's all within us. And yet, it's all outside us too. And so that prince comes to us when not the prince. So the stranger comes to us when he knows we're hungry at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening and shows us advertisements of food. Pizza rolls, crap food. Not even food. It's not even really food, people. It's stuff to feed. It's stuff to feed the market. Okay? So, let's go back to the pissed off princess. Pissiosity. That's what Cynthia James used. I love that phrase. Pissiosity. She is in her pissiosity to a degree at this moment. And when the princess is pissed, what are the strands she's weaving? What are the threads she's weaving? She's weaving negative threads. She's weaving pissed threads. She's weaving threads of retribution, revenge. She's weaving a tapestry of revenge. Someone must pay. Okay? She's weaving a tapestry of you're wrong and I'm right. She's weaving not a tapestry of healing, but of revenge. Okay? We're getting very graphic visions of this lately. When our gymnasts cannot go to their doctor and feel safe. We're getting very graphic images of this as the father rightfully wants to kick somebody's ass. Okay? Rightfully on a level, understandably, when we're not in denial, we don't want to be in denial. But we do want to deny that this has power over our realm. This is not who we are. We are not abusers and abused. We are not predators and prey. Do predators and prey walk the land? Yes, they do. But we need to look at the sunrise and the beauty of the sunrise. And we need to remember and we need to realize, as conscious, alert princes, vowing to protect our princesses from now on, we need to whisper healing to our princess. We need to whisper to our princess words of love and healing and peace. Because if we just fuel the fire of retribution and revenge, that's what she's going to weave. If we start whispering words of healing, words of peace, that's what she'll begin to weave. Now, it may take some time because she's got to spin the thread, and her poor bloody fingers have got to stop bleeding first. Okay? So we have to be steadfast. I want you to know something, because there's another principle at play here. There's the principle of polarity. And the polarity is what you don't want is attached to what you do want. Always. It always is. And here's the thing. There is no healing let me say it this way. There's no healing the abused without healing the abuser. And we're forgetting to look at that. We are casting our abusers into the dungeon, into the pit, hoping the dogs eat him. Okay? And we can't, because when you do that, the images are like this. When you chop the head off the hydra, what grows back? 2 heads. okay? It's a principle. We can't win that way. We have to heal the abuser as well as the abused. It's not the abused, well, eventually the abused does that healing in forgiveness. But when it's too soon, it's too soon. It takes the wizards, it takes the witches, it takes Sophia, it takes a strong and healthy prince to heal the princess. The princess can't heal herself in the beginning. Eventually, when she's strengthened, she does healing by forgiveness work. But we have to heal. We are called to be healers. We are called to be princes in our own realm, right? You are the prince of your castle. You have a princess that needs your protection. You have a glorious love affair waiting to happen in you. Because what happens when the prince and the princess are aligned, when the prince is awake and conscious, and the princess is healthy and in her glowing beauty, a beautiful thing happens. It's called the divine union. It's the sacred marriage, and it creates an environment conducive to the receptivity of that which is greater than all of us, the divine spirit that is waiting to come through you in your castle, through you and your princess. It's waiting to be birthed as the Christ presence within you. But it needs a humble but safe place. It needs the manger of your heart. It needs an environment conducive to growth. It needs the purity, the love, the strength, the protection of a healthy, happy home. That divine unity. So, the prince and the princess, you won't find them specifically in this book, but this is our book for the month of February. It, as I said last week, it's one of my Desert Island books. This is an awesome book because in this book, you will teach your prince how to be a proper prince, okay? It's going to teach your prince how to wake up and stop being zoned out, numbed out, drugged out. Wake up and tend to the princess and welcome an ecstasy of divine love that you never even imagined existed. It will lead you to that place within. We want to create that place so that we can welcome the divine union. Now, there are many other characters in this play of our lives. Some of us deal with mental health issues, drug addiction, things like that. I think of those things as dragons. Those are the dragons. Some of us are dragon slayers. But the thing about slaying a dragon is that you don't find the treasure that he hides if you slay him. And so I'm more about taming dragons, and we'll talk about that in the workshop. We're going to look at some of the other characters in this story so that we can train our prince to better guard the princess. We're going to do those things in the workshop. But I want to come back to this for a minute. Transforming your motivation. It's not about manifesting parking spaces and red sports cars anymore, people. Okay? If you've been in this, if you've done this a while, that's where you were. You know about manifesting parking spaces and red sports cars. We've moved beyond that. If you're new, you can start out with manifesting parking. You have to. You have to start because you can't believe in vanquishing the dragon if you haven't manifested a parking space. So manifest your parking spaces. That's good. But we can't stay there. We've moved beyond. It's time to rescue the princess. We have to rescue the princess. I'm telling you, you deserve to rescue your princess. Okay? So, I want to leave you with a few words from one of my favorite characters in one of my favorite fairy tales. From the words of Billy Crystal, okay? From The Princess Bride, all right? Have fun storming the castle. All right. Thank you very much for letting me be here.
Hi, I'm David Alt, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com. And there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.